The atrocities of Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan, the founder and first emperor of the Mongol Empire, is remembered in history for his brutal conquests and the atrocities committed by his armies. Some of the most notable atrocities of Genghis Khan include massacres. Genghis Khan was known for his ruthless massacres of entire populations. After his conquest of Samarkand in 1220, for example, it is estimated that he ordered the execution of 50,000 people in a single day. Rape and pillage. Genghis Khan's armies were notorious for their practice of rape and pillage. Women were often taken as spoils of war and subjected to sexual violence. The Mongol armies also plundered cities and towns, leaving devastation and destruction in their wake. Human shields. Genghis Khan sometimes used captured civilians as human shields in battle. For example, during the siege of the Khwarezmian capital of Urgench in 1221, the Mongol army is said to have taken thousands of prisoners and used them to shield themselves from the defenders' arrows and stones. Biological warfare. Genghis Khan's armies are also believed to have used biological warfare in some of their campaigns. During the siege of the Crimean city of Kaffa in 1346, for example, the Mongols reportedly catapulted plague-infected corpses over the city walls, spreading the disease among the defenders and leading to an outbreak of the Black Death in Europe. It's important to note that some of the stories and legends surrounding Genghis Khan and his atrocities may be exaggerated or fabricated, and that historical accounts of his reign are often written from the perspective of his enemies or conquered peoples. Nonetheless, there is no doubt that Genghis Khan's conquests were marked by brutal violence and suffering. Halakoo Khan's atrocities. Halakoo Khan, a Mongol ruler and the grandson of Genghis Khan, is known for his campaigns of conquest in the Middle East during the 13th century. His armies committed numerous atrocities in their quest for power, including sacking of Baghdad. In 1258, Halakoo's forces conquered the city of Baghdad, then one of the largest and most prosperous cities in the world. The Mongol army reportedly killed hundreds of thousands of residents, including men, women, and children, and destroyed much of the city's infrastructure. Destruction of libraries and cultural artifacts. During the siege of Baghdad, the Mongols burned the city's libraries, including the famous House of Wisdom, which was considered one of the greatest repositories of knowledge in the world at the time. Many priceless cultural artifacts and scientific manuscripts were lost forever. Forced conversions. Halakoo Khan was a Nestorian Christian, and he often forced the people he conquered to convert to Christianity. In some cases, he offered protection to Christians and other religious minorities, but in other cases, he persecuted them. Use of torture. Halakoo's armies were known for their use of torture, including methods such as the strappado, hanging a victim from the ceiling by their arms and then dropping them, the horse stomp, trampling a victim with horses, and the Catherine wheel, breaking a victim's limbs with a wheel. It's worth noting that Halakoo Khan was not solely responsible for all of the atrocities committed by his armies. Some of the most violent acts were carried out by his subordinates and allies. Nonetheless, his campaigns of conquest had a devastating impact on the Middle East, leading to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people and the destruction of many cultural and intellectual treasures. The atrocities of Raja Dahir. Raja Dahir, also known as Dahir, was a Hindu king who ruled over Sindh in present-day Pakistan during the 7th century. While he is primarily remembered as a heroic figure in Sindhi folklore and history, there are some accounts that suggest he committed atrocities during his reign. One of the most well-known incidents involving Raja Dahir is the Battle of Rasul in 711 CE, in which he faced off against the Muslim general Muhammad bin Qasim. According to some historical accounts, Raja Dahir ordered his soldiers to kill all of the Muslim prisoners of war they had captured, in defiance of the traditional rules of war. He also reportedly ordered the execution of the Arab governor of the nearby city of Dabal, and the enslavement of his family. However, it's worth noting that much of what is known about Raja Dahir's reign comes from accounts written by Muslim conquerors and chroniclers who had an interest in portraying him as a tyrant and justifying their own conquest of the region. Some scholars argue that the accounts of Raja Dahir's atrocities are exaggerated or fabricated, and that he was a capable and just ruler who resisted the Muslim invasion of Sindh. In any case, the historical record on Raja Dahir's rule is incomplete and contested, and his legacy remains a matter of debate among scholars and the people of Sind. The atrocities of King Akbar. Akbar the Great was a Mughal emperor who ruled over India during the 16th century. While he is often remembered as a tolerant and enlightened ruler who promoted religious harmony and cultural exchange, there were also some instances of violence and atrocities committed during his reign. Some of the most notable ones include campaigns of conquest. Akbar engaged in a number of military campaigns to expand the Mughal Empire, and some of these campaigns were marked by violence and brutality. For example, the Mughal conquest of Gujarat in 1572 is believed to have resulted in the deaths of thousands of people, and many temples and other cultural sites were destroyed. Forced conversions. While Akbar is known for his religious tolerance and promotion of syncretism, he also sometimes resorted to forced conversions of his subjects. For example, he issued a decree in 1581 ordering all prisoners of war to be forcibly converted to Islam. Persecution of non-Muslims. While Akbar is often praised for his religious tolerance, there were also times when he persecuted non-Muslims. For example, in 1579, he ordered the massacre of over 30,000 Rajputs who had rebelled against Mughal rule. Execution of opponents. Akbar was not hesitant to execute his political opponents, and many people were put to death during his reign for perceived disloyalty or treason. It's worth noting that many of the sources on Akbar's reign come from Mughal court historians, who had an interest in portraying him in a positive light. Nonetheless, it is clear that there were instances of violence and atrocities committed during his reign, and his legacy remains a matter of debate among scholars and the people of India. Cruelty in the British. There are many examples of cruelty and atrocities committed by the British Empire throughout its history. Some of the most well-known examples include the slave trade. The British Empire was heavily involved in the transatlantic slave trade, which involved the forced labor and exploitation of millions of African people. The conditions on slave ships were notoriously brutal, and many slaves died on the journey from Africa to the Americas.